West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
We begin tonight with the breaking coverage of the war in Israel and the fighting that has gripped the world for the past 72 hours. Israel has declared all-out war on Hamas after the group launched a devastating surprise attack from Gaza, killing 700 Israelis, many of whom were attending an outdoor concert, and abducting dozens of people, including children. Israel says it reestablished control of the territory on its side of the Gaza border 48 hours after the attack, although the fighting and the bombings continue. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addressed his country today, saying his military would intensify its operations against Hamas, and that its attacks on Gaza are just the beginning. Israel has ordered a full siege of Gaza, pounding the area with airstrikes and gathering 300,000 troops ahead of what could become a ground operation into the densely populated enclave. More than 1,000 people have been killed so far in the fighting. At least 700 people have died in Israel, according to its military. More than 680 people have died in Gaza, according to the Palestinian Health Ministry. 11 Americans have been killed in the conflict, and more may be missing. Amid the Hamas attack, more than 100 people have been kidnapped and are being held hostage. Captives include children, teenagers, and the elderly. Those captives are now facing a terrifying ordeal. Hamas today threatened to start executing hostages if Israel bombs civilian houses in Gaza without warning. Israelis are speaking out, sharing the harrowing moment when they realized their loved ones had been abducted.
About 10 minutes later, I could hear people speaking in Arabic outside their door. And they broke in, and the last thing I heard was the youngest, who's 12, saying to them, "I'm too young, don't take me." And that was it. That was the last time I heard from them.
You never imagine your girls and your wife would fall down to Hamas' hands when they were visiting their grandmother.
If there was some way that you could take their place, they could be free and you could go to Gaza.
Where do I sign?
You do it, no question.
Where do I sign?
Yeah.
I'm willing to get killed right now for their lives.
Anything to bring them home.
They can take me for as long as they want.
In the wake of the attack, conditions for civilians in Gaza are expected to dramatically worsen, cut off from electricity, food, water, and fuel. There are roughly 2 million civilians trapped there. The Israeli government has told them to get out. But without a clear pathway by land, sea, or air, it's not clear where they could go. Take a look at this map. Gaza is that narrow strip of land wedged between Israel and Egypt on the Mediterranean Sea. It forms the smaller of the two Palestinian territories, the other being the West Bank. Gaza is a crowded coastal territory that is already under a 16-year blockade by Israel and Egypt. Israel prohibits Palestinians from entering or leaving the area except in rare cases. It's one of the poorest places in the world. Its conditions have been described as an open-air prison. And even worse, in 2021, the United Nations described its conditions for children as hell on earth. Let's bring in MSNBC senior correspondent Ali Velshi, who's in Tel Aviv, and retired Army Lieutenant General Steph Twitty, MSNBC military analyst and former deputy commander of U.S. European Command. Thank you both for being here. Ali, I do want to start with you. From what my understanding, and just reading Haaretz all day and watching our coverage, is that the general feeling in Israel is shock and outrage and rage and real anger. Talk about the conditions there and what's to come.
Yeah, those words are all right. Dismay, remarkable fear. Israelis have often said that they're not fearful of much, given the way this country was born and what they've had to endure. They're scared now. I'm in Tel Aviv. It's 2 in.the morning now, but typically this would be a place that would be buzzing until the late hours of the night. It wasn't. Cafes are closed. Restaurants are closed. People are not out. They're very fearful. We've been listening to fighter jets for much of the evening. We had 8 instances of an Iron Dome interception of incoming rockets from Gaza, and Israel is conducting airstrikes in Gaza. Last night they conducted 500 of them. They claim that they are IDF. The Israeli Defense Forces claim that they're Hamas installations or operations. The problem is, as you described, Gaza is 2.2 million people in a very, very small area. It's one of the most dense places on earth. So you can't hit something without hitting something else. And innocent people, non-combatants, are dying there. So a terrible, terrible tragedy that occurred on Friday and Saturday is now becoming a substantially worse tragedy. Israel has said they're going to cut off, as you said, fuel, water, and food to Gaza. You can't import anything into Gaza. So that means that Gaza is going to run out of diesel fuel in about 3 days. That's important because you see the pictures, there's no lights in most of them. The electrical power generation is done with diesel fuel. They run out of that, they run out of power. So it's about to become a humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza as well for a whole lot of people who had nothing to do with what happened in Israel. Hamas continues to hold those hostages. That's complicating the efforts to do what Israel wants to do because they can't go into Gaza while these hostages are not freed. It is a terrible, terrible situation, and it's getting worse, Joy.
Yeah, in a way, you might say that Hamas has 2 million additional hostages, too, the people in Gaza as well. Let me just ask you that last piece of what you mentioned. They can't get out. And so Israel has told Gazans to leave. But given the fact that they've got Egypt, we can put the map back up again. Egypt is in one direction, the sea is in one direction, and Israel's the other direction. Where can they go?
Yeah, and we need to see where Egypt's going to stand on this, but there are 135,000 Gazans who are now without a home. They are displaced internally. There are probably many more than that who would like to leave. Egypt closes that border as well. So Israel's on 2 sides of Gaza. The sea, as you mentioned, they're not free to use the sea. There's a limit, a very short limit about where they can go out and fish. There's no port, there's no airport, there's no control over their skies or anything like that. So Benjamin Netanyahu warning Gazans to leave because he said that what they're going to do to Gaza is going to echo through the generations is a remarkably disingenuous comment. Gazans are trapped. They are prisoners. They cannot go anywhere. So as horrible as this situation is for Gazans, it's about as horrible as anywhere on earth, and it's about to get worse.
Lieutenant General Twitty, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here. Let's talk about these 2 hostage situations, I guess you could call it. Israel is saying all-out war. They're going to use aerial attacks on Gaza, but there are Israeli citizens somewhere inside of there. Talk about how this works as a military operation, and if it's a ground incursion, these hostages would seem to me to be at double jeopardy then.
Yeah, what I will tell you is this is the worst situation that you could be in as a military person and having to conduct this military operation. And so you're spot on because many of these hostages can be used as human shields, and Hamas will probably decentralize many of these hostages and move them around quite often. So it's going to be hard for the Israelis to figure out where they are. And you also mentioned the fact that there's 2 million people that's crammed in 140 square miles, extremely dense. And so where do you really start with a ground operation where you don't really know where the folks are to be able to retrieve them. And you have to worry about the amount of population that you're going to have to deal with going in and fighting an urban battle at the same time. And so this is going to be a very complex operation. If they go in by ground, there are going to be many casualties on both sides, particularly Palestinians. They're going to have to worry about they being Israeli tunnel warfare. We know that the Gazans have tunnels that make their way into Israel, and the hostages may be in tunnels as well. And so very complex operation. And be quite honest with you, in my 40 years of service, I have not witnessed anything that's about to happen here.
All right. I mean, we do all remember the Iraq War when the U.S. went into Iraq, and that was not a cakewalk by any means, because when the military comes, people tend to fight back. Let's talk about the shock of this happening. Go ahead.
Well, just so you know, I led that operation as a battalion commander, so I was part of Season Baghdad, so I know what type of urban warfare that they're getting ready to deal with.
So you definitely understand it. Well, I want to talk to you about just sort of the shock, the shock factor of this. It seems, and I've seen people use the term suicidal for Hamas, which has a political wing which runs Gaza, operates Gaza to the extent you can, given the fact that it's under complete blockade. But for them to choose to do this at this time, did that surprise you as a military man that they were able to pull it off, given, as Ali described, how constricted Gazans are and how constricted the movements are? Are you surprised that they did it, that they tried it, and that they pulled it off?
Well, I'm not surprised that they tried it. I mean, this has been I characterize this as a pot of water on a stove that's going to boil over. As we all know, there's been settlement issues, there've been issues of oppression, and there's been an uptick in violence over this past year. And so the water boiled over here with this particular operation that was carried out. What I am surprised is the sophistication in which this occurred, land, sea, and air. I'm also surprised when you take a look at the advancement in Hamas missiles. Traditionally, they've been crude, homemade missiles. These are missiles now that can fire pretty accurately and pretty deep into Israel now. And so you can tell that there's outside influence, both training and military hardware given to Hamas.
It is Tuesday, the 10th of October of 2023, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner, the English bulldog, is our snoozing sous chef. Precious, our little Yorkie, is the door girl, and she will be seating you directly for our especially special daily special, Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. A small scant dash, a mere pinch of hot smoked Hungarian paprika will make all the difference in the world. It always has, and it always will. Yeah, okay. Well, we've moved a lot further along than just the mere spice trade now, haven't we? Going to war over spices. Yep. Well, it's a lot more serious these days. Way back in the day on Daily Co's, Marcos had imposed a restriction on posting what were known as IP diaries, Israeli-Palestinian diaries, because of the, people just went off. really, totally went off. And I think it's been relaxed a little bit because this is more than just a Palestinian issue and an Israeli issue. Let's be clear. And what we do know about what is currently going on in terms of the macro, Hamas wants to disrupt any kind of peace plan or any kind of agreement between Israel and Saudi Arabia, which I gotta tell you, with Netanyahu there, I don't know. Maybe Hamas is saving Israel in some fashion. I know it's weird, but just bear with me. because Hamas is not really interested in, well, a solution, are they? And Netanyahu is an opportunist. Haaretz is actually accusing Netanyahu of being in cahoots with forces that would allow Hamas to, well, shall we say, gain strength, armaments, and, maybe a little pushing here and there, and they would, react. Now, that's a very cynical way of looking at it, but I wouldn't put it past Bibi. But we don't even need to go there, because there's a reason why Hamas is considered to be a terrorist organization, and all you have to do is look at the fact that they killed all those kids. And I know some of those kids are in their 20s, but I'm an old guy, okay? People in their 20s are kids to me, okay? Please. And even younger. Hunted them down. When I first heard it, it kind of reminded me of Breivik. That guy there in the Netherlands who went to that island where kids went every year to basically learn about government and bond and, And how many did he kill? 70, 80, something like that? That was just one guy. They were all trapped, but that was one guy. So, and then of course, the horrendous ISIS-type snuff videos, snuff flicks. I have no interest in seeing any of that. But it proliferates on Musk's platform as planned. I can't help but think that all of this is just too neatly wrapped up. I don't want to become a conspiracy theorist. I fight against it. I know causation and all of that is no indicator of what the truth actually is. But it seems too neatly wrapped up. Now, how one can, counteract the effects of what a conspiracy theory might be is how you have to go through all sorts of contortions to make it work. The simplest explanation is always the best explanation, or shall we say tends to be. And if it has to go through some sort of complex linear movement to make something work, it's usually, some Looney Tune conspiracy theory. But I gotta tell you, in this instance, it doesn't seem so complex. Especially when one looks at the facts. Now we know Trump gave up ISIS-type intel to Lavrov and Kislyak in the Oval Office when he first took office. And a lot of people are pointing to that incident, or that instance, as being the time. But I think it goes beyond that. I alluded yesterday to the possibility, the fact that Trump gave up even more Israeli intel, maybe about Iron Dome, or even more sensitive material, to Putin personally at Helsinki. Two things I want to know is how come Trump came out with Vlad? Vlad is smiling, and Trump has got his shoulders, drooped forward, and he's kind of listless, looking down, looks really concerned, like, I don't know, like he was threatened with a fall from a 5-story building somewhere that he doesn't own, just happens to not own. It'd be more fun if he got chucked out of his own, but hey. Looks to me like that's what he was threatened with. Or Novichok. Whatever it is, that stuff they throw on people to make their, face turn green and pockmarked. Trump looked scared. Vlad looked smug. What was given up then? I'd like to know that. And also, that little tete-a-tete between Anthony Kennedy and Trump when, Kennedy was pretty much pushed out. Kennedy made a deal and he realized on the walk back after the act was committed on live television for the world to see, he found out exactly what Trump was up to, and he thought Trump was going to be honest in their agreement. Give me a break. Okay. I want to know what Kennedy said, too. Those are the two things I really want to know. Why was Trump looking so downtrodden in Helsinki when he came out with Vlad, and Vlad was looking so smug? What did Trump give up? And what did Anthony Kennedy say? What was that about? We can speculate, and all of us do. But I can't wait to hear exactly what it is so that we can pretty much say, yep, we were right. We shall see. So, what else is going on in the world? It seems like the Republicans are on pretty much Hamas's side. They give lip service to the Israelis. Oh, yeah, we want genocide. Boy, you saw quickly they jumped to genocide. Marco Rubio's out there saying we got to kill all the savages. You know what? Civilians are not savages. Were those kids who got massacred at the... this is the other thing, too. They're trying to say, that wasn't a peace concert. It was a rave. Well, I don't know. Raves are kind of peace concerts by their very reason, okay? And when people say they don't like raves, it's like any other concert. Heavy on the bass. So, I don't like the killing of innocents. I know it's important, and I posted this on social media. I know it's important in a time of war to dehumanize your enemy so you can kill them. It's a lot harder to kill somebody you like, somebody you know, somebody you might have, tea with. Dehumanize them? A lot easier to decapitate them with a hoe, I guess. I do not ever want to side with that kind of behavior, and I know that we do it too. It has been done. And that's why we have, a little bit of oversight, one would hope, to prevent that from happening and teaching our warriors not to do that bullshit. It's not about looting and plunder and exacting, some sort of license to do whatever you want to do in the mayhem. Because that's terror. And that's what Hamas is doing. They are terrorizing. And I will say that bombing whole sections of a city with a bunch of civilians because, there might have been Hamas somebody there, is terror also. And I will also acknowledge the fact that terrorizing civilian populations is not new. In fact, it happened in the ancient world. And it's happening now, and it has never stopped. But, we have had government bodies agreeing not to do that. I mean, if we're going to have war, we should be civilized about it, right? And yes, we should, because raping, killing, mutilating old people, young people, babies, teenagers, 20-year-olds, I don't care how old, how young, how rich, how poor. If you're a civilian, you're an innocent. Pardon me. I just don't like any of it. Can't we all just get along? Why does one group get displaced and another group doesn't get displaced? And I don't know. Why can't we make some sort of understanding about living together? Wouldn't that be nice? And that's not to lay blame on anyone. Homelands or homelands? Argument might be made that even the Denisovans might have been gentrifying the neighborhood. Just saying. All right. What do we have in store for you here in the Bistro Cafe as we begin on this Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays? Yes, at the top, that was the Gazans pretty much warned to leave Gaza, or at least parts of Gaza, while they bomb city blocks and more. Is disingenuous because there's no place for them to go. We'll see what happens on the Egyptian border. We'll see. I doubt it. But nonetheless, telling the civilian population, oh, well, you need to get out of there. Really? When have they ever been allowed to get out of the Gaza? When? On the rest of the menu, back here in the States, Nevada's largest teacher union filed suit against a state law making it illegal for teachers and other public school employees to go on strike. They still have that. The Wisconsin Supreme Court sided with tenant advocates in limiting eviction records. Used to be that if you were evicted, it was on for 20 years, and the Supreme Court agreed, said, it only has to be on for 2. Who knew? And Florida settled a lawsuit over COVID data DeSantis ordered was off limits and has agreed to provide weekly stats to the public. Let's hope that they're true. You never know with this guy. After the break, we move to the chef's table, where an independent inquiry opened into unlawful killings by United Kingdom Special Forces in Afghanistan a decade ago. Look, reckonings have no time limit, apparently, and that is as it should be. And the European Union reversed an earlier announcement that it was suspending development aid to the Palestinians. Well, good. Let's starve them and push them into the war, too. All right. Somebody made an actual adult decision here. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. The bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com. To the right of the page is the chat room link, monitored by Kelly Lincoln. Thank you, Kelly. Across the page from that chat room link at our homepage at netrootsradio.com, and down just a skosh is the link to our Patreon page. And if you could become a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio, it really does help. The cost of running this powerhouse of resistance never goes down. Darn them. And it's not because of inflation either. I don't know. But regardless, we found that when you pay your bills, you kind of fly under the radar, and whoever they are with a capital T either don't notice you or allow you to continue flying under the radar, so we can continue this powerhouse of resistance that has been resisting for, well, a little over 13 years now. Wow. God. But we have you to thank for helping us and being so generous so that we can fulfill our civic duty as the founders originally intended so many, many years ago. Thank you. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, Mastodon, Spoutable, Blue Sky, you can do so at Netroots Radio. Tom takes care of those. Thank you, Tom. Follow me on Twitter, Mastodon, Spoutable, Blue Sky, Instagram, Tumblr, Facebook, yada, yada, yada. At Justice Putnam, or simply Justice Putnam, as the case may be, as you know. And I post the show notes and links diary. Okay, they're diaries on Daily Codes. I know they want to make them stories, but they're diaries. Anyway, that gets posted 10 minutes before showtime. How? Well, I put it in queue, and it automatically posts. I say do it at, 7:50, and there it is. And in those show notes and links diaries, you're able to access the actual reportage. And that's the way we like it around here. And you can find those show notes and links diaries by following my social media feed, because the links are all there. They are. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio, how about following the show? We already went how to follow Netroots Radio. But if you want to follow the show on Twitter, I'm telling you, it's only a placemat. I haven't done diddly with it, and I intend to on these other media platforms. I promise. Gotta just mark out some time to do that. But anyway, you can follow the show on Twitter at Cookbook West. And most importantly, would you please pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, wherever podcasts can be found, except on Stitcher, because, well, you know what I've told you about Stitcher. It's no longer there. It isn't. But you can find podcasts of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy most everywhere, except where it's not, because that place isn't there anymore. Okay, let us now tuck into this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Nevada's largest teachers union filed lawsuit yesterday, Monday, against a state law making it illegal for teachers and other public school employees to go on strike over pay and working conditions in the country's fifth largest school district, which includes Las Vegas. The Clark County Education Association argues in its lawsuit that the 1969 state law prohibiting public employee strikes is unconstitutional. They said it also infringes on the First Amendment rights of its approximately 18,000 members in nearly 380 schools in Las Vegas and the surrounding Clark County, who are waging a contentious months-long battle over their contract. They also argue that the state's definition of a strike is overbroad, sweeps away constitutional rights, and gives way for arbitrary and discriminatory enforcement. The Clark County School District and the state of Nevada are both listed as defendants in the lawsuit. In emailed statements, the Clark County School District said it is evaluating the complaint, and the Nevada Attorney General's office said it would not comment due to pending litigation, just like in the manual. Last month, waves of teachers called in sick over a number of days, forcing many Las Vegas area schools to close, including one where 87% of the teachers called in sick. The school district filed a lawsuit against the union, and a judge ordered the union to put an end to the teacher absences, calling them very clearly a strike. If the sick-out continued, union penalties could have included daily fines of up to $50,000 for the organization and $1,000 per day for union officers, as well as jail time, suspension, or termination for strike participants. Wow, what is this? 1902? The union maintained that it was not involved in the absences and appealed that ruling to the Nevada Supreme Court. If the judge rules in the union's favor and a contract agreement is not in place, a union spokesperson said they would take the question of a strike to our membership to make a decision. Scott Bauer of the Associated Press brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. The Wisconsin Supreme Court voted yesterday, Monday, in its first public administrative conference in more than a decade, to reduce from 20 years to 2 years the time when most eviction records must be kept on the state court website. The change was sought by tenant rights advocates who argue that the longer record keeping has made it more difficult for people with lower incomes to find housing. The court voted 4-3, with liberals in support and conservatives against, for shortening the record keeping on the state court website, commonly referred by the acronym CCAP. I guess that's what it is, CCAP. Legal Action of Wisconsin sought to change for cases where there was no money judgment against a tenant. At a hearing last month, tenant advocates said the change would help renters with eviction history, since many landlords rely solely on the statewide court website for determining whether to rent to someone. Justice Brian Hagedorn dissented. He questioned closing off public access to the records, which he also said would pose an administrative burden for court officials. He said there were other ways to address concerns raised by tenant advocates. It feels odd to me that this court would get into it this way, by shutting down access to records, Hagedorn said. This is a significant thing. Numerous landlord groups, including the Wisconsin Realtors Association, opposed the proposal. They argued that changing the rule could result in landlords charging higher rental deposits to protect themselves, a change that will negatively affect all renters. Sounds like a threat. Last year in Wisconsin, there were 25,819 filings for eviction, with 1,621 resulting in judgment of evictions being granted. The justices voted to make the change in open conference, something they have not held since 2012. The court's new liberal majority changed operating procedures to again open the meetings that conservative justices closed in 2012, when they were in the majority. Which beggars the question, what are they always trying to hide? This last offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Florida will have to provide COVID-19 data to the public again after a former Democratic state representative settled a lawsuit with Republican Governor Ron DeSantis and his administration over the decision 2 years ago to stop posting information on the virus's spread online. Then Representative Carlos Guillermo Smith sued after the Department of Health denied his public records request for COVID-19 data in 2021 and announced the settlement yesterday, Monday. He was joined by the Florida Center for Government Accountability. The settlement requires the department to provide COVID-19 data to the public for the next 3 years, including weekly statistics on cases, deaths, and vaccinations by county, age group, gender, and race, Smith said in a news release. The state must also pay more than $152,000 in legal fees to cover the plaintiff's legal costs. $152,000. There we go. Let's see. Florida stopped daily COVID-19 updates on its online dashboard in June of 2021, citing a decrease in cases and an increase in vaccinations. Several states later did the same. The Department of Health admitted no wrongdoing as part of the settlement and said it always provided the data to centers for, or to the CDC. And Department spokesman Jay Williams III criticized Smith and the Florida Center for Government Accountability in an email, saying the lawsuit was a political stunt. Well, you know what? It wasn't. You're hiding the stats because people were dying in your state because your health officials told them to take ivermectin and, I don't know, shoot up bleach? You have a quack running your health department and DeSantis put him there. All right. I gotta stop pontificating, don't I? Yes, I do, and you know why? Because it's time for our break. And when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. This week, not what you might expect. The trailers for The Creator would have you prepared for a Terminator or Independence Day-style shoot-'em-up, and in fact, the first few minutes of the film, after the faux 50s robot newsreels, lean that way as well, with our protagonist, John David Washington's Agent Joshua Taylor, losing his wife to the enemy, and thus being appropriately motivated. That enemy is the AI-controlled nation of New Asia, supposedly responsible for the nuclear destruction of Los Angeles 10 years prior. His righteous cause is soon muddied as what follows is an off-ramp into what the U.S. Army dubbed, 100 and some years ago, going native for soldiers who started developing doubts about the genocide with which they were involved. It's not that we haven't seen this before, think Avatar, but there's more going on here as the U.S.'s commitment to destroy all AI becomes commingled with destroying a non-white culture that apparently lives in peace with AI. Says the robot simulant Alfie at the center of the plot, I want all robots to be free. And then there's the idea of non-human rights, which in modern sci-fi is often a convention to define humanity. With a budget a third of similar pictures, director Gareth Edwards has achieved a gritty yet stunning look here. It's shot ultra-wide with a Sony prosumer camera with natural lighting and what are termed guerrilla filmmaking techniques. The effects are spare, with most of that budget going to the awesome depiction of the Allies' Nomad weapons platform, which is both a menacing and symbolic presence. Daring directing, spectacular production design, and good acting overcome some script shortcomings and flirtations with cliché to make The Creator one not to miss. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. Catch up with us at Take2MovieReview.com and feed us back on our channel on YouTube.
If you came across someone struggling with hunger, how would you recognize them? By their clothes, their age, the way they speak? Would you notice an 8-year-old girl who's not excited for summer break
because she may not be having lunch again until September?
Or a single father of 2 who works 3
part-time jobs and still can't put enough food on the table?
Or maybe a mother who cleans offices at night,
hoping to find meeting leftovers to take home to her hungry family.
Or a war veteran who's having a hard time
landing a job and getting back on his feet.
I am the 1 in 8 Americans who struggle with hunger. People you pass by every day but never knew were hungry. I am hunger in America.
Hunger can be hard to recognize. Learn why at IamHungerInAmerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America, 200 Food Banks Strong, and the Ad Council.
This is the story of a very special woman. In a matter of seconds, she turned herself into a great mathematician or an entrepreneur. Her knowledge was limitless and still is. She could also make monsters disappear, especially those that lurked in the shadows under the bed. Once, this woman put back together a teenage girl's broken heart, which had been shattered in 1,000 pieces, just by giving her a bear hug. She masqueraded as a regular person at work, but as a superhero at home. Everyone knows her as Gabriella. I still call her Mom.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need to help, complete with tips and resources at aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
You're listening to the American Democracy Minute, keeping your government by and for the people. In a victory for Alabama's black voters, a federal appeals court chose a new congressional voting district map with 2 districts where black voters finally have a reasonable chance at electing the candidate of their choice. This concludes a 3-year redistricting process, a U.S. Supreme Court case, defiance by the state of Alabama, and finally a court-mandated map. June's Milligan decision mandated 2 of 7 districts be majority-minority black districts, or quote, something quite like it. Of the 3 options created by an independent special master, Remedial Plan 3 was chosen as best in retaining black voting power. It includes 1 district, which is 51.9% black voters, and one with 48.7%, compared with the state's rejected remedial maps of 50.65% and 40%. The new map will be in place for the 2024 election and will likely impact control of the U.S. House of Representatives. Still defiant, Alabama Secretary of State Wes Allen said, quote, "The Office of the Secretary of State will facilitate the 2024 election cycle in accordance with the map the federal court has forced upon Alabama and ordered us to use." The Milligan plaintiff said in a joint statement, "Thousands of black voters throughout the Black Belt for the first time will be able to elect their candidates of choice in 2 opportunity districts." We have the new map and more at AmericanDemocracyMinute.org. I'm Brian Beal.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1933. That was the day that 40 armed cotton growers shot at a group of striking workers in the small town of Pixley, California. That year, a wave of labor unrest had swept through the fields of California's agricultural industry. Nearly 50,000 workers participated in strikes throughout the year. The Agricultural Workers' Industrial Union led many of the strikes. The American Federation of Labor also led 2 walkouts. Workers were angry over declining wages and the harsh working conditions of agricultural life. The Depression had slashed wages. Cotton field workers in the San Joaquin Valley had seen their wages cut by as much as 75%. 3/4 of those workers were Mexican. As cotton harvest season neared, the workers organized to strike. They demanded $1 for every 100 pounds of cotton they picked and recognition of their union. The growers offered 60 cents. At the peak of the strike, an estimated 12,000 to 18,000 workers had walked off the job. Anger mounted. Armed growers attacked striking workers, demanding they return to work or leave California. Strike leaders were arrested. In Pixley, the growers formed a Farmers Protective Association. They claimed to have as many as 600 members. Reportedly, one manager of a cotton gin told the farmers, "The time has come for us to take the law into our own hands and drive the strikers from our farms." The simmering tensions boiled over. As highway patrolmen looked on, on, a band of growers shot into a group of unarmed strikers. At least 2 strikers fell dead. The violence resulted in public outcry and federal intervention. The workers received federal relief, and a mediator helped to settle the strike. And in the settlement, the workers would receive 75 cents per 100 pounds of cotton. Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. We always begin, whether from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River, in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 55 degrees Fahrenheit, expecting a high of only around 60 to 62. Steady rain this morning as it's falling right at this moment. Showers continuing in the afternoon. Winds will be out of the south-southwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. And this spate of rain should bring us close to a 1/4 inch of rain. Then this evening we'll have rain early, then remaining cloudy with showers overnight. Lows in the upper 40s. Winds out of the southwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour, and something less than a 1/4 inch tonight. And then showers tomorrow, then partly cloudy in the afternoon with highs around 60 once again. Winds out of the west-southwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Looks like we'll have a bit of rain tomorrow night, and then a bit of a drying out period until the weekend, and then we may have days of rain coming, so we'll look forward to that, won't we? Ragweed pollen is rated moderate here in the town of Rogue River. The air quality index for the region is in the good range at 14 parts per million, and that daytime UV index is in the moderate range, but has ticked up 1 level to level 4. Barometric pressure is falling at 29.68 inches. Visibility is at 8 miles, and relative humidity is at 96%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world, and that is the Weather Underground. The little weather station right there in London is registering 71 degrees and sunny. Paris is 81 degrees and sunny. Rome is 86 and sunny. Kabul is 60 degrees and clear. Kyiv is 48 and partly cloudy. Hong Kong is 76 and cloudy. Tokyo is 66 degrees and fair. Melbourne, Victoria, Australia is 50 degrees and clear. San Francisco, California is 58 and partly cloudy. Chicago, Illinois is 51 and cloudy. And New York, New York is 60 degrees Fahrenheit and mostly cloudy. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. Sylvia Way of the Associated Press brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. An independent inquiry opened yesterday, Monday, to examine claims that British special forces murdered dozens of Afghan men during counterinsurgency operations in Afghanistan a decade ago, as well as allegations that authorities subsequently covered up the alleged illegal activity or failed to investigate it properly. The inquiry, which opened at the Royal Courts of Justice in London, focuses on unlawful killings that took place during night raids carried out by Britain's elite military units in the war-torn nation between 2010 and 2013. Families of those killed say they were innocent and unarmed civilians and called on the inquiry to unearth the truth. In one case, family members allege that 9 men were shot in their beds during a raid. The British military has said that soldiers were acting in self-defense. The investigation is expected to hear submissions on behalf of families of 33 people, including 8 children, who were killed by special forces. The inquiry was ordered last year after some family members launched legal challenges against the UK government. It will scrutinize 2 previous investigations by the Royal Military Police into allegations of wrongdoing by UK armed forces in Afghanistan, which closed with no prosecutions. When the BBC aired details of the unlawful killings in an investigative program last year, the Ministry of Defense cited the lack of evidence in the 2 earlier inquiries and claimed it was irresponsible and incorrect to report the allegations. British forces were deployed to Afghanistan since 2001 as part of a NATO-led international coalition after the September 11th attacks. Thousands of British troops were sent to Helmand from 2006 to help with providing security for reconstruction projects, but they were soon drawn into combat operations.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière, la promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle, c'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Rafe Cassard of the Associated Press brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. The European Union late last night, Monday, reversed an earlier announcement by an EU commissioner that the bloc was immediately suspending development aid for Palestinian authorities and instead said it would urgently review such assistance in the wake of the attacks on Israel by Hamas to make sure no money was misused. There will be no suspension of payments at the moment, a terse European Commission statement said late Monday, 5 hours after EU Commissioner Oliver Varelli had said that all payments for the development program for Palestinians would be immediately suspended, all projects put under review, all new budget proposals postponed until further notice. No immediate explanation for the reversal was given. A full European Commission statement always trumps a statement from an EU commissioner, but the reversal on a $730 million U.S. dollars, a program capped an embarrassing day at the EU's executive at a time of extreme geopolitical sensitivities. Since Saturday, support of the 27-nation bloc for Israel had been steadfast, including that the country had now every right within international law to defend itself in the war with Hamas. The surprise announcement by Varley on development aid came just hours after EU officials stressed that no EU money whatsoever was going to Hamas in the first place, and that contacts had been frozen for 16 years. The EU considers Hamas a terror group. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day, but you do know Netroots Radio broadcasts on, and we will meet up here tomorrow for Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks, and we will meet up here tomorrow, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Appétit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. À fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goer. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.